welcome you. You've sent us quite a bit of material, actually, all centered around MJ DeMarco's book, The Millionaire Fastlane.
Yeah, fascinating stuff.
So our goal today, our mission for this deep dive, is really to pull out the key insights from these excerpts. We're focusing on those different, roadmaps to wealth he talks about.
Right, and the mindset you apparently need for this fast lane.
Exactly. And you have to start with DeMarco's own story. It's pretty compelling.
Oh, definitely. He saw like a Lamborghini as a teenager,
Right.
and the owner was an inventor.
Yeah, and that just completely flipped a switch for him on how wealth could be made.
And then boom, first million by 31,
Mhm.
retired at 37.
Pretty wild. Now he just travels, total financial freedom. It kind of sets the stage, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a real-world counterpoint to the usual advice.
He didn't just read about it, he actually did it. Found an alternative to, decades of saving pennies.
And hoping the stock market behaves.
Right. So from that, he lays out these three paths: the sidewalk, the slow lane, and the fast lane.
And we're going to dig into what makes each one tick.
And what makes them so different from each other?
And the book, right from the start, it basically throws down the gauntlet against that whole get-rich-slow thing.
Mm-hmm.
DeMarco's point is, look, that traditional way might mean sacrificing your best years for a future that isn't even guaranteed.
Yeah, and he positions the fast lane as, well, a faster alternative for building real wealth.
Okay, so where do we start? The sidewalk.
Let's do it. So, the sidewalk. DeMarco paints this picture. It's really defined by chasing short-term gratification.
Instant kicks, yeah. And maybe a bit of selfishness, irresponsibility.
That seems fair based on the excerpts. And a key thing is how sidewalkers often live paycheck to paycheck.
Right at the financial red line, he calls it. Super vulnerable.
Totally. So any little thing, car breaks down, unexpected bill.
Bam. Their whole situation could just collapse.
And when that happens, who gets the blame?
Never them, right?
Okay.
It's always someone else. My boss, the government, bad luck.
Exactly. There's this real lack of personal accountability, it seems.
That's a huge part of it. And their whole idea of what wealth is can be kind of skewed.
How so?
They confuse it with just, like, buying stuff immediately. The latest gadget, a flashy car,
Yeah.
usually on credit.
Ah, the debt trap. He uses that example, doesn't he? Financing a super expensive car.
Yeah, like an $80,000 car.
Yeah.
He calls it impersonating wealth, not actually being wealthy.
Ouch. But it makes sense. And this ties into what he calls lifestyle servitude.
Explain that a bit.
Well, that need for the instant stuff, funded by debt, it chains you to a job, maybe one you hate.
Because you have to make those payments. You're serving your lifestyle, not the other way around.
Exactly. So for you listening, maybe think about where your money actually goes. Do you value the stuff more than the time and freedom it costs?
That's a tough question DeMarco forces you to ask.
And because the sidewalk is about now, and feeling out of control.
They get drawn to get-rich-quick stuff, right? Like lottery tickets or those crazy infomercials.
Yeah, he mentions the infomercials promising fortunes with, zero effort. It's that desire for an easy button.
Which usually doesn't exist.
He also has this concept, the politics of hitchhiking. What's that about?
It's basically looking to someone else to fix your money problems, like relying on the government or complaining about taxes instead of focusing on your own actions.
So kind of abdicating responsibility again, waiting for a ride instead of driving.
Pretty much. A total lack of personal control or agency over your finances.
And this view is so different from DeMarco's definition of actual wealth.
Totally. For him, it's not just the money or the things. It's, good relationships, health, your well-being.
And freedom. That's the big one. The freedom money can buy if you manage it right.
Mm-hmm.
So bottom line on the sidewalk, according to these sources, not a sustainable plan.
No. It likely leads to more work, more debt, more stress, a vicious cycle.
Okay, let's pivot then. What about the slow lane?
Right, the slow lane. DeMarco says this is like the road most people are on. And it's often seen as, a step up from the sidewalk.
Because it involves responsibility, right?
Absolutely.
Accountability.
Exactly. It's that familiar path. Go to school, get a job, save your money, invest.
Yeah, the 401k contributions, pay down debt slowly, the snowball method. We hear this advice all the time.
All the time. But DeMarco's big critique, it hinges completely on time.
And time is...
something you can't really control or leverage effectively in this model.
Yeah.
He talks about the 5-for-2 trade.
5 days of work for 2 days off. Yeah.
And mathematically, it's just really hard to get rich quickly when you're just trading hours for dollars, even if it's a decent salary.
He also pokes holes in the whole compound interest miracle, doesn't he?
He does. He's not saying it doesn't work, but the time it takes. It's immense.
That example was Stark investing $1,000 in the S&P 500 in 1940.
And it only became really significant by, what, 2011?
Right. Is that practical given, how long we actually live?
It's a fair question. And the slow laner's typical response to this slow pace: get more education, get more skills.
To increase their intrinsic value, aiming for a higher salary.
Exactly. But DeMarco argues, look, that's still fundamentally time for money, maybe a better rate, but the core limitation is still there. You haven't escaped the time trap.
Which leads to his paradox of practice. This was interesting.
Yeah, he basically asks, did the gurus selling the slow lane advice he named Sue's, Double Dad Robert, actually get their wealth that way?
Or did they use something more like the fast lane, like building a brand, selling books, media appearances?
That's the implication, that maybe they built their platform using different principles than the ones they preach for typical saving and investing.
Food for thought. And he outlines specific dangers of the slow lane, too.
Yeah, 7 of them. Things like health risks from delaying life and job stress.
Job insecurity, you can always get fired or downsized.
Lack of real control over your income growth.
Limited leverage because it's tied to your time.
The risk of lifestyle creep eating up raises.
And the biggest one, time itself. It's finite, and you're betting decades of it.
And he makes this distinction, too, about being slow lane rich.
Right, it's not usually the flashy wealth people imagine.
No, even slow lane millionaires often live pretty modestly. Sensible house, sensible car. It works, but it's slow.
So you see the drawbacks of the sidewalk, the limitations of the slow lane.
And it sets the stage perfectly for why he champions this third way, the fast lane.
Okay, let's dive into the fast lane. DeMarco presents this as a whole different way of thinking, right? A lifestyle choice.
Yeah, aims squarely at building wealth much faster than the slow lane allows, getting beyond just middle-class comfort.
And the core difference lies in its wealth equation. He talks about controllable unlimited leverage, CUL.
CUL, exactly, versus the slow lane's uncontrollable limited leverage, or ULL. It's a fundamental shift in the variables you focus on.
So how do you even start thinking like a fast laner?
The first big step, he insists, is shifting from being just a consumer
To being a producer.
Exactly. Start looking at the world differently. Like when you see an ad, don't just think about buying the product.
Think about how the company is making money, their process, their business model. Have you ever found yourself doing that? Looking at a commercial and thinking, wonder what their profit margin is.
Totally. And that producer mindset helps you spot opportunities and understand this thing he calls the wealth acceleration factor, the way.
Right. So traditional saving might have a low way, maybe 8% year if you're lucky in the market.
Yeah, but building a successful business, that wave can be astronomical. He gives an example, like a medical device company.
With a potential life of 1,700%. I mean, the number isn't the point as much as the scale of difference, right?
Exactly. It illustrates the potential for exponential growth that just isn't there when you're saving from a paycheck.
And this kind of growth often culminates in what he calls liquidation events.
The big exit, basically. You build something valuable, usually a business, and sell it for a large sum. That's rapid wealth accumulation.
So how do you build that valuable asset? He talks about money tree seedlings.
Yeah, 5 core types of systems that can potentially generate passive income. Rental systems real estate is the classic one. He calls it Wealth 1.0.
Okay.
Computer and software systems. Content systems, books, blogs, courses.
Distribution systems, getting products to market efficiently.
And lending systems, basically being the bank.
And the key thread running through all of these is
Passivity, detaching your time from your income.
so the system makes money whether you're actively working on it right now or not, like earning interest from lending a large sum.
Precisely. And this ties into his law of affection, which sounds impactful.
It is. The core idea is the more lives you impact positively, either through scale, reaching lots of people, or magnitude, having a huge impact on fewer people.
The richer you become.
Yeah. It becomes a kind of litmus test for a good fast lane business idea. Does it affect enough people or affect people enough?
And practically speaking, he stresses setting up your business correctly, using a corporation, C Corp, S Corp, LLC.
Why?
Primarily for liability protection, separating your personal assets from the business. And potential tax advantages, too, compared to just being a sole proprietor.
Right, the legal structure matters. We don't need the deep dive on corporate law, but the takeaway is structure, protection, and potential efficiency.
Definitely. Now, shifting gears slightly, he talks a lot about the power of choices.
But he splits them into 2 types.
Yeah, choices of action, what you actually do, and choices of perception, your underlying beliefs about the world and yourself.
And the perception drives the action.
That's the argument. Your beliefs dictate your path.
He offers a tool for making better choices too, the WADM.
Weighted average decision matrix. Yeah, it's basically a structured way to evaluate options by assigning importance to different factors, making choices less emotional, more rational.
Makes sense. He also warns about negative environments, calling them flatulent headwinds.
Yeah, memorable term. Is anything dragging you down? Negative job, pessimistic friends or family?
Things that actively slow your progress.
And his advice is to actively seek out the opposite accelerative wins.
By surrounding yourself with positive, ambitious people who support your goals.
It's a huge difference. Then he comes back to time versus money.
Time is scarce. Money, potentially abundant.
That's the Fastlane view. He introduces indentured time, the time you have to work just to pay your bills and cover liabilities.
Versus free time.
Right. And the goal is to radically shift that ratio towards having much more free time.
And a big killer of free time is parasitic debt.
The debt you take on for consumption, for instant gratification, not for
The
assets.
stuff that forces you into more indentured time. He has a simple rule for controlling it, the law of chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah. Basically, if you don't want to eat the cookies, don't buy them in the first place. Control debt at the source. Stop the impulsive, gratification-driven spending.
Simple but effective. He's also huge on education, but not necessarily traditional schooling.
Right, he calls it Life University. Continuous learning focused specifically on skills for building and running businesses. Practical knowledge.
And then he throws down a challenge, really asks you, the listener, are you willing to make sacrifices now?
Yeah, are you willing to give up some of that mediocre comfort now of the slow lane for the possibility of massive freedom later?
It's a crucial question. What short-term comforts would you trade for long-term goals?
And he acknowledges failure is part of the game. It's unavoidable.
But distinguishes between types of risks. You want intelligent risks.
Limited downside, huge potential upside.
And avoid the moronic ones with little upside and big potential losses.
So again, the path to wealth and the fast lane, it's a business.
A business that follows that law of affection, solving real needs.
Yes. Stop chasing money directly.
Chase needs. Solve problems for people, add value, and the money follows.
That's the core principle. And interestingly, he says your motivation doesn't have to be like pure love for the work itself every single day.
It's more about passion for the end goal, the freedom, the lifestyle.
Exactly. The why behind it all can fuel you through the tough parts.
Okay, this leads into his 5 fast lane commandments. These seem critical for evaluating ideas.
They really are. They act as a filter. You've got the commandment of need,
Does it solve a real problem or serve a genuine need?
the commandment of entry,
How easy is it for anyone else to jump in and compete? High barriers are better?
the commandment of control,
Are you in the driver's seat, or are you dependent on someone else's platform or rules?
the commandment of scale,
Can the business reach a large audience or market? Does it have leverage?
and finally, the commandment of time.
Can the business be automated or systematized to run without your constant direct involvement? Can it detach from your time?
Spot on. Those 5 are like the constitution for a fast lane business.
He uses network marketing, MLM, as an example of something that often fails these commandments, right?
Yeah, typically violates entry, often easy to join, and definitely control. You're usually playing in someone else's sandbox with their rules, products, and comp plan.
So you're more of a hitchhiker in that scenario, not the driver.
Precisely. The fast lane is about being the driver, owning the vehicle.
And the main things holding people back from achieving that affection are
Lack of scale, not reaching enough people, or lack of magnitude, not making a big enough impact on the people you do reach.
you need one or ideally both.
And that commandment of time is just paramount. Building systems so the business earns while you sleep, basically.
He gives some specific examples of internet business models that often align well with these commandments, these seedlings.
Yeah, things that tend to have fast lane potential. Subscription models.
Predictable recurring revenue.
Content systems like valuable information products, lead generation businesses, software as a service, SaaS,
Being a broker or matchmaker online. Advertising platforms.
and certain types of e-commerce, especially with unique products or strong systems.
So lots of possibilities there. His advice is to actively look for your open road.
Yeah, pay attention to everyday problems, complaints, unmet needs. Opportunities are everywhere if you look with that producer mindset.
He even gives a little 4-step process to get started.
Step 1, define your dream lifestyle. What does it actually look like?
Step 2, Figure out what that lifestyle costs. Be specific.
Step 3. Set the financial targets needed to fund it, both a lump sum for liquidation and monthly cash flow.
And step 4, the most important, take action. Start building.
And he compares business to chess, not checkers.
Meaning it's complex, multidimensional, requires strategy and foresight.
Exactly. Not just simple reactive moves. And he stresses execution over just having ideas. Ideas are common, execution is rare.
What about dealing with customers? Especially complaints.
He says complaints are actually gold mines for feedback if you handle them right. He categorizes them. Complaints of change, they want something different. Complaints of void, something's missing. Complaints of expectation, you didn't deliver what was promised.
Use them to improve the business.
Absolutely. And providing amazing customer service, he calls it service that SUCC.
Meaning it surpasses unusually crappy service.
Yeah. Going way above expectations.
Yeah.
That builds incredible loyalty.
And turns customers into free marketers for you.
Definitely. He also warns about hijackers.
People who drag you down in your business or personal life.
Yeah, negative or unproductive people who drain energy and stall progress, cut them loose if you have to.
And don't obsess over competitors.
Focus on your own game, your innovation, your customers. Obsessing over rivals is usually a waste of energy.
He talks about building brands, not just businesses. What's the key there?
Having a strong, unique selling proposition of USP. What makes you different and better? And then making your message stand out.
How?
Through things like polarization, taking a stand, arousing emotions, being interactive, maybe being unconventional. Don't just blend in.
And avoid Teckle syndrome. What's that?
Opportunity hopping. Jumping from shiny object to shiny object without ever fully committing.
He advocates for business monogamy.
Focus. Pick one fast-lane venture that meets the commandments and see it through. Don't get distracted.
He wraps up the process with this acronym, the FASTLANESUPERCHARGER. Bit of a mouthful.
It is, but it highlights key stages.
Yeah.
Things like education being ongoing, automation being crucial. It summarizes the journey.
But ultimately, it's a personal journey, isn't it? Requires massive action.
Absolutely. It's not passive. And he tackles objections head on, like, but I have debt.
Acknowledging the hurdles, but pushing for solutions, finding needs to solve, maybe leveraging unique advantages like a teacher's summer break.
Yeah, finding your angle. And he clarifies the focus isn't just on getting rich to buy fancy toys.
It's about the freedom those things represent, the choices, the possibilities.
Exactly. The material stuff is a symbol of the underlying freedom achieved.
And it all starts, he says, with belief and making the choice to begin.
That first step, driven by a changed mindset.
So, wrapping this deep dive up, we've looked at these really distinct financial paths.
Yeah, the sidewalk, kind of reactive, short-sighted, often leads to trouble.
The slow lane, the conventional, responsible path, but very slow, very time-dependent with inherent limitations.
And then the fast lane, this alternative focused on controllable leverage, building systems, solving needs.
And critically, detaching your time from your income, building something scalable and controllable.
It's a huge shift in thinking. Not just different tactics, but a different philosophy.
Which leads us to that final thought for you, the listener.
Yeah, looking honestly at these three roads. Which one are you actually on right now?
And maybe more importantly, is that road truly taking you where you want to go? Towards real financial freedom and a life you're excited to live.
Definitely something to chew on after exploring DeMarco's ideas. A crucial point for reflection on your own journey.